how the selectmen appoint and reappoint officials for the next term, and that won't happen until beginning of July. So these can be tabled to your July meeting.
Okay. Signature forms, did you bring them up?
No, you gotta wait for that same thing too, because
Same
they
thing,
ask for
oh,
the
because you
terms.
need the appointments, okay. Then the A&R plan for 159 Gore Road, James Fisher.
Yes, this is the plan that was submitted, and what they're doing is, I apologize for the quality, is that right now, this is a singular lot, and this is part of all of this. So what he's doing is he's dividing this piece, no, he's dividing this piece off of this piece to create two new lots. The project meets all of all the requirements of the regulations.
Okay.
Frontage.
Anybody have any questions regarding this A&R? No? Then I'll entertain a motion to endorse the A&R for Gore Road,
And direct staff
159.
to sign.
and direct staff to sign.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion regarding the A&R? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Next item is substation site improvements, 52 Worcester Road, New England Power.
All right, I'll put the plan up there, and the applicant does have somebody present to speak to it, and if there's anything in this list of documents you want on the screen, just let me know. Yep. I'll zoom in.
Just push the button, make it green.
Oh, can you hear that?
Yep.
All right. So good evening. For the record, my name is Matt Steffen. I'm a civil engineer with BSC Group, representing New England Power tonight as the owner. So I'll just give you a little bit of quick history and background for the project, and then explain, why we're here for a stormwater permit. So as you can see on the site plan, that's the survey. The site is a substation currently on 52 Worcester Road. What's been happening in the substation is they have an existing retaining wall in the back, a stone retaining wall. And there's a steep slope up the back, as well as the neighboring property contributes some stormwater. So during a lot of storm events, water collects at the top of that wall, quickly overtops it, and runs into the substation. So they've been experiencing a lot of erosion and gullying and things like that. So the concern is undermining any of the foundations for the large transmission line structures. So we, BSC, were retained several years ago to design some stormwater improvements and help mitigate that. So the original design was under the 10,000 square foot threshold for the stormwater permit application. So actually, could you go one more sheet? Thank you. So the original design had some stormwater improvements, which I'll discuss in a moment. And the outlet for the system basically ran through the substation and had a small catch basin that would just allow overflow water to leak out of the system, essentially. So once construction began, we encountered a number of buried utilities in the substation, and it essentially made it impossible to use a gravity system through the substation to daylight it. So what we came up with instead is, you can see, actually, do you mind just scrolling up a hair? Thank you. So where that's bubbled there on the site plan, what we've done is we've brought the outlet into the neighbor's driveway and then down to another catch basin that we've installed there. So the design functions in the same way, but going through the driveway and adding the replacement has bumped us over the 10,000 square foot threshold. So that's why we're here tonight for a stormwater permit. So the stormwater improvements themselves involve, we put in a new retaining wall to replace the old one. And behind that is a large underground infiltration system. And then at the toe of the wall, at the bottom side, is a secondary, smaller system. So the idea is to collect all the water from that runoff from the hill, as well as a portion of the neighboring property that currently discharges to that same location. And it will hold most of the stormwater, and similar to the previous design, just during very high storm runoff events, when the system gets overtopped, a small amount of water will bubble up out of the pipe, and it will flow north through an existing grass drainage swale along the front of the property. So that's the general overview of the project history, background, and everything, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
It's going to flow north along Route 12 in a swale that's maintained by who?
I believe the swale's on the adjacent owner's property, so he would be maintaining that.
Okay. Well, that's probably an issue.
Having it being maintained by the neighbor?
Yeah. Currently, especially.
Yes.
So, Chuck?
So engineering-wise, I just had a couple comments. Just to add some silt fence north of the site. Provide a long-term operation and maintenance plan. The standard comment of providing a legal attachment of the operation and maintenance plan to the property. And the last comment is the plans and the calculations show two different types of overflow structures. So that should be resolved. That's it.
Yep, we've received those comments, and we haven't got a chance to formally reply yet, but we expect to very soon.
Okay. And do you have any recommendations based on the fact that this is discharging to a area is coming up shortly, I guess, in tonight's meeting, right?
Not owned by the maintenance of the swale in
Yeah.
front of 56 as opposed to, we probably should have an agreement between the owners of 52 and 56 to protect, to document the fact that,
If they need to maintain it, they can, because, they're not.
yeah. I spoke with Brian Wentworth as well, who is the engineer that I've been talking to, and he asked about the operation and maintenance plan being connected to the deed, and I explained to him that, based on the research Chuck had given to me about the stormwater manual, that is, we've been basing that recommendation on a best practice that comes from the stormwater manual. They don't need a waiver from that, but, I spoke with Brian, said it would be at the board's discretion. It is a best practice. I can't see New England Power selling this property anytime soon, but if they did, the next person who owned the property would then be made aware through the deed that there is a maintenance plan that's required. So it's at the discretion of the board, but I think we should see some sort of agreement between the two parties that allows New England Power to maintain that swale in front of 56. Everyone's getting along now, but you don't know what the future's going to bring.
We don't have a discussion item about 56 tonight?
We do have a discussion on 56. If you want to jump ahead to that, you can, but it's a different subject. It's a similar, but
I
separate from
understand,
this.
but it's just, it would help the rest of the board probably understand what I'm talking about.
Okay,
because I
'cause we do
probably
have
jumped ahead of
pictures.
everybody, and I apologize
Yeah,
for
no,
that.
that'd be interesting.
You want me to jump ahead to that material and we can talk about it?
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind.
Okay, because there are pictures that will help everyone understand what's happening here. I did explain to Mr. Wentworth that, the board can proceed with this stormwater permit separate from what's happening right now at 56 Worcester Road, which I'll jump right to the pictures. This is the work here's the substation, here's 56 Worcester. Chuck and I had gone out there in early May. This will give you a feel of the scope of what's happening out there. I explained to Mr. Wentworth that I had been in touch with the property owner. They have responded. I'll fill you in on that in a second, because it's unclear what's going to happen to all this disturbed area. We also believe this is up at the northwest corner of the disturbance, that the wetland is also fairly close. So the property owner at 56 Worcester is going to be working with staff and your board to get the necessary stormwater management permit that they are required to have and did not get before all this clearing was done. So there's a lot of fill that's gone on here. And this is the area we're talking about. This is, so there really should be.
So they filled in all the way up to the front there, and that swale run that he's talking about is running in the direction of that point of her arrow. So that water has to run across there, and that's why I was concerned about the management of that going in the future. So it probably makes sense that we
Yeah,
just wait until we get and you guys can work with the owner and hopefully get some kind of a management agreement or something, or at least some kind of a utility easement or,
do you want the folks at 52 Worcester to lock in that agreement prior to?
that's probably the best thing, because they're gonna be there forever.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, in some
Play in
form or
your
another, it
best
may not be
interest.
New England Power, but it's gonna be something power.
Yeah, I remember that.
All right, so we can ask them to put that together and
Does
submit it.
anybody else have any questions about this? Because I'm just, like I said, I apologize for jumping around, but I knew it was coming, so I didn't want to complicate your life any more than it has to be already. So you have a couple comments you have to address from Chuck. You'll address those. You'll work with the owner over there and try to resolve some kind of an easement or maintenance facility there that you
Yeah,
can get in there.
they're, I think they are negotiating a maintenance agreement for the pipe and the catch basin with the owner, so, I can't
You can add
speak
that.
for them, but I can, they would probably be amenable to something like that, so
I
I'll
would
certainly
think
ask.
that- I mean, it's going to benefit them too. so,
Exactly.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a big deal.
So that lower level power is owned by New England Power, not the site center?
No, that's all Lindstrom's.
That's all Lindstrom's down there?
But that water has to go across
Right.
Lindstrom's property to get to the other wetland.
Right, okay.
Yeah, this is a panoramic view, so it's kind of got a bit of a warped angle to it, but this is the,
So
this
that
is the
water comes
access
from there
road.
and has to go all the way
Right,
across to the
right.
left. So,
So,
I think everybody understands it, so I would ask for, I mean, we need a extension for this? we
yeah,
don't?
you can extend it to your next meeting. We can also, depending on how quickly the material is returned to us, we could have a draft decision in hand for the next meeting, so you could move forward. This is a little different than your special permits and site plans, because it's regulated by the construct of the stormwater bylaw, so you have a little more flexibility in how you manage these permits. So I could have something ready for you, assuming we can get everything.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why we can't get something prepared and be ready, and just, they can work with the other owners there and try to put it together, I'm sure as part of their other maintenance agreement.
And just to close the loop on this particular subject matter, which will tie into this, is that we are going to be meeting via video conference with the property owner, the Lindstrom Six Family or Six Kids Trust. Some of those folks will be on the call with their lawyer and somebody from National Grid, and we can talk about this to them as part of their application and what needs to go forward to resolve the violation we've got here, but also make sure that National Grid is whole in terms of its requirements for maintaining that swale.
Okay, sounds like a plan. So I'd entertain a motion to continue this to the next meeting, which is June, what? 26th. 26th.
June 26th.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to jump ahead to item 3C, which is the commercial parking at 114 Point Breeze Road. Speaking with the owner, he's going to request a continuance to the next meeting to get his application into ZBA.
Okay, so,
Do you need him to come up and do that, or can I do that?
yeah, I mean, he's got to submit, but the ZBA process on average takes 3 months.
Well, I understand, but we'll continue it to the next meeting, and then we'll figure out where we go from there, so we'll just, I mean, him coming here is, it doesn't, it's not gonna help him move forward at all, so our approval is gonna be pretty simple once he gets through with this zoning board of appeals, so.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, AJ? That was the intention, sure. Yeah, okay. Do you need a vote, or no? We do? Okay,
I'll make a motion to continue.
okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll see you next time, so. Going back to item 3B, modification of the site plan for sales and commercial parking at 300 Thompson Road. And do you want to address where we stood after last meeting? No, I was asking Ann to,
I'm
I mean,
sorry, I was lost.
we went for site visits, and you want to give the rundown so that,
Yes, the board members had scheduled individual appointments to meet with the property owner, 15-minute increments. They went one by one, so there was no need to post anything with regards to a public meeting being held. And I have not talked to any of the board members about their visits, but you had continued this meeting to have the opportunity for board members to see the site. Since the time of the site visits, there have been a couple of new submissions. One, which is Mr. Adamopoulos' response to Attorney Carizzi, and some additional comments. No additional comments. So there haven't been any new engineering review comments. The last site plan was just up on the screen. I'll pull it back up. So Chuck can certainly speak to anything he's got left outstanding.
okay. So my question for the board would be, do we need to continue the public hearing, or would you like to close the public hearing? We can have our discussion after you went to the site visits, after the public hearing, or do you want any more input, I guess is my question. I don't know what you think.
The only thing I would add is that, you know, from my visit, viewing some of the abutters property, I walked the entire property with the owner. The owners, she pointed out some barrier shrubs at the, I'm looking at the plan, at 306 Thompson Road that were put in. And looking at what were one of our criteria for site plan approval, it's basically not to create a nuisance, and it talks about noise, odor, unsightliness. I'm leaning towards the opinion that I would like to see some barrier shrubs along the properties that where of the complainants, basically. I think that's maybe I'm trying to mediate, but I think there is particularly, now granted, we went there in the spring and there's some foliage out, so there isn't as much transparency as there's gonna be more in the winter time. And then I do understand that they did buy the properties, when it was zoned, it was zoned commercial. And I think the town sent a message at in the spring meeting that they want it still to be zoned commercial, but I think a barrier would be some sort of, fast-growing bushes.
On the applicant's side.
Yeah, on the applicant side, yeah.
She had stated to me that she had put arborvitaes, when you pull in the first house on the right there, that she planted arborvitaes there. What
But
house were you
that's
talking
on their land, so what Jason is saying is that to create an additional barrier.
Oh, okay.
Put it on the burden of the applicant so that there's a buffer zone there, and I don't think the applicant had an issue with that as far as I know, so.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with you, I think that would be a fair assessment, right?
I too toured the property, and so with the trees in full foliage right now, it looks like the only window on that house on the right was on the second level that actually could see into the property. And so I would imagine that in the fall and the winter, there's probably going to be very little activity there. Maybe in the fall, as far as people storing their boats, there might be obviously activity. But, you know, when we went, the foliage of the trees, you know, completely blocked off that house, except for the, looks like the window right in the middle on the second floor. So,
I think just to make it cleaner, you know, we didn't get into, you know, which tree is on whose property, and
Yeah.
somebody takes down the tree, and I think that just, you know, barrier of shrubbery, you know, on the applicant's side, I mean, they still will have sufficient space, you know, they're only coming in with, the way I understand it, is with dualies and, you know, pickup trucks with trailers on the back, so we're not bringing in an 18-wheeler, and it's basically Lakeview Marine employees. It's not so much,
yeah, I think she's very willing to accommodate whatever.
Attorney Adamopoulos, you want to step in here, or?
Well, I can tell you that there's been some discussion of, I believe it's already a fence line, was to increase the 6-foot fence running against the property. I believe you're discussing from a 6-foot to a 12-foot fence. That was some discussion that we've had internally. We have presented it to Attorney Curtsey to see if he would bring that back to the applicants, and then to increase the other fence that runs off that, to put a covering over it, so that it was no longer see-through, because I believe that's just a chain link fence. So that was the discussions I had, you know, this week with Sue. I can certainly bring to her that the board would like to see potentially some sort of shrubbery. I don't remember off the top of my head who planted the bushes that you're talking about. I do recall Mr. Duquette at one point saying I believe he had placed those there, but if it's to have some more, I can certainly talk to Sue about that and get her input. But I do believe that just working out some sort of barrier issue to appease some of the abutters is appropriate.
I mean, if
It is one of the- it is one of the-
the both parties can agree to the barrier, then I'm in agreement with it, you know,
Right.
I'm just,
Yeah, there's been some
You know,
discussion, so I know.
you know,
we
reading the
proposed to
two
increase
letters,
it.
it seems pretty adversarial, so I'm trying to walk some middle on, but if
No, I can tell you that our stance is if we can work with Attorney Curtsey and find a solution, we certainly will. We proposed that, we're waiting to hear back some feedback, but I'll also bring your recommendation to Sue. Once again, I mean, she can place those on her
It's
property.
not a recommendation at this point.
Your
Let's-
thought process.
Wait till we get to the end.
Words matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So I just want to, because at some point, we're going to craft a draft decision for you to discuss and edit and do as you please. We're talking about visual buffering in this area specifically, correct?
And on the other side?
Here's where the arborvitaes are planted. And when you have plantings that were installed on private property, you know, plantings, in theory, will be around longer than the rest of us, but who knows? The site plan should address buffering that is on the site plan, not on
Right.
property that's abutting it. So are you talking about additional
Yes.
landscape buffering here?
Yep, landscape, yep, there,
Yeah, if they raise the fence and provide an additional buffer there with plantings that will grow, I would think that should be much better.
And
Were you
down
talking
here,
about another area, Jason?
no, what I was referencing before was, yeah, kind of where Ann is, where her, now, Sue, did point out that there was some shrubbery that was put in by Lakeview Marine that, just, as a show of good faith with that property owner, and that property owner, actually took them out because they didn't like them, and or they agreed to take them out because the person would rather see the boats placed in back of the chain link fences rather than the shrubs. So they agreed to, you know, to resolve the situation that way. So,
well, actually, you might have noticed that, I think from the time that I first started going out there to our most recent site visit, which Chuck and I took together, they've installed a fire pit. And it looks like the property owners have planted a couple of their own arborvitaes just in that area to provide some visual buffering between the fire pit, but it doesn't cover the whole fence line there. You know, that's entirely up to you in terms of, you know, right now, this property owner is not raising any objection with regards to buffering, but if you think it's prudent in the future to have some sort of buffering requirement along that line, you can do that as well.
Well, I have to go by with what I was told by the applicant. You know,
Okay.
That person, you know, like I said, they took or they agreed to remove some of them because they didn't have an issue with the view. So-
Yeah, I heard the same thing, Jason, too, that there's
So-
no problem whatsoever with that neighbor. Unless that neighbor's here, I don't know.
Is that a chain link fence all the way around?
Yeah, I think it is. Is that chain link fence all the way around there?
I can't hear.
Is that a chain link fence all the way around was her question, and I believe the answer
Carolyn,
is
you gotta
yes.
talk into the,
No, I mean, with fencing, can't you weave those things through so you can't see through it? I mean, a
plastic
tree is
strips.
good, but the tree might
Well,
die.
that's what the attorney Adam
That's one of the
Hoffman had
proposals.
mentioned was.
Yeah, I mean, I think
To
that's
put
a,
to do the
yeah, then you
covering
don't
over
see
it
it.
so that it would block any see-through through the fence. That's one
Yeah.
of the proposals that we have
Yeah.
put forth.
if seeing it is a problem, you know what I mean?
well,
But the other,
that's something that you can require as part of approval as well. So, I mean, I know they're talking about it, but ultimately, your decision is looking at this now and also as to what it looks like in the future. So that's one of the conditions you can put on there if you feel that that's reasonable. I mean, it's great that the two attorneys are talking, but ultimately, your decision has to address buffering and screening in any way you see appropriate.
Right.
so the fence is on their property, right, on the,
That's my understanding.
okay.
And
So then, if they want to, you know, make it block it, that's up to them to do that, right? I mean, I'm not talking about the decision here, I'm just saying,
So I
they
can-
could do that, they don't have to ask each property owner that, you know, it's not on their property.
Probably should at this point.
Sure, but I believe on that property, it's, like, as was stated earlier, I think blocking just the viewpoint
Yeah.
would appease that abutter.
Yeah, because then you got some people that want bushes, that guy rips them out, that guy wants them, that guy doesn't, so I don't know, what do you do?
I'm of the opinion, like I said before, with the, if you look at the, 298 Thompson Road, that definitely along that line, I would say one line of bushes. That's where my mind is.
Yeah.
Which would be like a 10-foot setback buffer or more, or I don't know what does anybody think is gonna be satisfactory?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, with trees, if they live, they die, then there's a problem, you gotta go, then they're gonna complain they're dying, they're not blocking my view, versus, to me, a fence with those things woven through is a blockade of, you don't need to see, I don't know.
Somebody said tonight,
Do I make
a
sense?
fence makes a good neighbor, is that what?
They do, yeah, they did, yeah, I did say that, yeah.
I planted 53 arborvitaes, and they're like 3-footers, and some of them do well, some don't, some die, so kind of doing the fence is kind of like bada bing, you know,
Yeah.
and it's done.
And once again, I think on the abutter on the right-hand side, the proposal is to do that, but increase the
Height.
size of the fence. On the rest of the chain link was to just put the covering on it so that it would block any sort of visual impact. And obviously, with it having being uniform, it might be even more appeasing because it would just be one solid color.
Well, currently, we're still in the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to point out quickly that there will be, whatever you decide on for screening, the property owner will be responsible for maintaining it. So if the trees start, if you decide on trees and the trees die, there is a requirement that they be replaced in kind. Because sometimes that privacy slatting, sometimes that doesn't hold up well either. So what you want in there is, whatever you choose, to have some sort of maintenance clause on there.
Yeah.
I mean, on the lake, I see, you know, I don't agree, you know, if we can agree that fencing is okay, then I'm okay with that, but I see these, and I'm not, you know, up on the terminology of, you know, what types of bushes, but they're fairly large, you know, some of them can go up to 20 feet, and there's, you know, they're fairly wide, you know, 3 to 4 feet
Yeah,
width, and
They're
you're
all
not-
healthy ones.
yeah, they're the healthy ones,
I
yeah.
wish I had those on my property.
Water and sun.
Yes, no, I understand, and I think that
I was just thinking of like options to mediate, like you said, not to, you know.
I think that we could make, certainly, if they decide that they want to have a 10-foot high fence with screening, and we make a maintenance facility for that, and a 10-foot buffer with aphrodite planted on both sides, we can do that too. I don't really, I mean, I think the applicant is pretty much open to whatever she needs to do, but, is there any other discussion as far as the public hearing goes? Otherwise, we can close the public hearing, and we can continue to have a discussion amongst ourselves. Sure. You want to come up?
My name is Karen Bartholomew. I own 30 Point Pleasant Road in Webster. My concern is traffic impact and whether or not a state access permit has been received, simply because 193 is a state road, and you need permission from the state to have that access, especially with the amount of vehicle traffic that's going to be going in and out of that property. And the reason I'm concerned in particular, on my street intersects where the Cat Connection is, and when you stop at that stop sign, and I've owned this property 18 years, when you stop at that stop sign and Thompson Road is perpendicular to Point Pleasant, when you look to the left, the road has a high point, and then it comes down to a low point, very close to that intersection. And it's forever that you look to the left and you think you're safe, and then you pull out and you're not safe. That happens all the time. And given the marina and the amount of tractor trailers or vehicles or business taking place, I'd want to know, was there a traffic study? Did they get a state access permit? I mean, I think there's a big void here when you're talking about safety on Thompson Road.
Okay.
That is a state road.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may address that issue, my name is Stephen Balsvich. I'm here.
Steve, I'm going to need you to come up to the microphone so that they can record you. I'm sorry.
My name is Stephen Balsavich. I am here representing 300 LLC, 311 Thompson Road, Webster, Mass. And if you show in, please, sheet 3 of 5.
Okay,
3 of 5 shows the site distance triangle. When you exit the property, you can see 250 feet to the left and 390 feet to the right, which is sufficient site distance based on being 14 feet back off the traveled way and a height of, I believe it's 4.5 feet high. And it shows the topography on the site distance detail.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the only question.
Kristen Valeri, 298 Thompson Road. The question still is, do you require a state permit for
I'm sorry,
access to the state?
ma'am, you can't ask them a
Do
question.
you? Then the question is, do you require a state permit for that driveway to
We
exit
don't
onto
require
190?
state permits, that up to
Okay,
Mass
so they
DOT.
don't have one.
I don't have no idea. It's not the purview of this board to require DOT permits.
Okay. All right, so I just want to mention a few things, because this is probably going to be my last time, obviously, to speak in front of you guys. We fully stand by Attorney Carizzi's letter that he wrote, that everything in there has merit, it has fact, it has things to back it up, bylaws, town bylaws, stormwater management, and several facts. Sales were not permitted in 2014. We came before you guys in March of 2022 to ask that question, and it was confirmed by you and also by Ann that sales were not permitted on the site plan. and they were in violation, they have been in violation, the ZBA upheld it, and they were in violation as of a few months ago.
We've all heard this, ma'am.
Okay,
Is there anything new to add to the
Yes,
discussion since
absolutely.
last time
Yeah.
you were here?
So I have a question is, what is the required frontage for property on a B5 zone in order to put a building in?
It's 50 feet.
50 feet. How many feet are on this property?
I don't know that, this is only identifying one piece of the property. It doesn't identify the whole piece of property.
Okay, can anyone answer the question, what it is, and how
The
can you?
plan shows 43 feet.
43 feet, okay. So 43 feet of frontage, how was that overcome in order to be allowed to put a building on this property? What's the process?
And do you want to address this, or?
Second
Yeah,
driveway.
this is a modification of an approved site plan. That issue should have been addressed back in 2014 as part of the work that was done then. So the frontage isn't going to change.
Right, although it has, because they've added property and they have another
They do have
access.
two driveways, right? There's a second driveway with 50 feet.
The second driveway is actually a right-of-way for 3 properties, so that is not considered frontage. So there's 43 feet of frontage on this property.
Okay, ma'am.
So it's not been addressed, it has not been addressed, it has not been overcome, correct? Or you're not addressing that?
I believe the town's position is that it's a modification,
It's a
therefore it's
modification of
not
something that
required.
was approved prior.
Ms. Morgan correctly.
But it was never overcome back in 2014. There's no record of it being overcome in 2014.
Was
What
it-
is the process for overcoming 43 feet?
Ma'am, that's not the discussion for tonight.
I'm
What-
asking a question.
Do you have anything else that you
I'd
would
like
like
to
to
understand.
add?
Okay.
Okay.
What is required to put up a building?
A building permit?
Okay, and has that been applied for?
Not as of yet, because they don't have this site plan is a amendment and not a new plan.
But there is a building on the property.
There is not a structure that's permanent on the building currently, I don't believe, that I saw.
They're
in
calling
my
that a
site
sales
visit.
office and saying that is going to be the sales
shed
office.
that's there, 24 by 12,
It's over the 240 square feet.
yeah, anything over 120 square feet would require a building permit, and that would come as, after the site plan was approved.
Okay. Any other questions, ma'am?
Back in 2014, and I know I'm going
We're
back.
not addressing
I-
anything from
I'm
2014.
asking a question. What is required for a stormwater permit? What kicks off a stormwater permit?
I don't believe that the stormwater bylaw was in effect at the time that that site plan was approved. I can't be positive, but I know the stormwater bylaw was approved in 2014. I think it was fall town meeting. I can't be positive, so the stormwater bylaw may not have been
In
valid at
effect
that time.
Okay. Any other questions, ma'am?
Okay, yep.
I will
So-
actually, not to interrupt you, but I'll answer your question about the frontage, this being a modification. If you look at MGL 40A, Section 17, deals with the appeals, and I believe those appeal periods have already told, if you read that statute,
I'm sorry, that the appeal period, what?
has already expired. To
Okay, but
challenge-
we're modifying the site plan to add additional uses
We were.
and a
No,
building.
no, I was answering your question about frontage, the 43 feet frontage, that was allowed by the planning board in 2014. And what you said, you asked, how do you challenge that? Is that correct?
No, I was asking how it was overcome back in 2014, because there's no record of it being
It was
overcome.
approved that plan was approved by the planning board, and that plan stands because the appeal period has already expired for.
When did the 50 feet go into effect as far as the minimum frontage? Because there should be a process for 50 feet that allows you to overcome the 43 feet, which there was never a process that was followed.
No, your question, you know what?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay, it doesn't matter, obviously. Okay, so basically, all three of those things, we can all agree that they really have not been completed, and that have not been addressed. So the last thing that I'd like to address with you guys is basically, we have had some discussions regarding the screening, And the screening that we've talked about amongst the attorneys was a 12-foot fence, like a cedar privacy fence along the property lines. We would like to see that written as part of the conditions for our order of site plan approval. The chain link fence with the slats, anybody that's been in any kind of business long-term knows that those do not last. We have concerns with it being chain link with slats, that it's not going to be upkept. Based on the way the enforcements have been done, I don't believe that it's going to be enforced if there is a problem with it or it becomes unsightly. I don't think that that's going to address the problem long-term. The landscaping that is there currently, that they've provided, basically does not, the few things that they've provided, it doesn't do things during the winter. The winter, the foliage falls off, the boats are out there. It needs to be something that's more permanent, it needs to be something that's not unsightly, something that's going to be upkept on a regular basis.
I think that
So,
was exactly the discussion that we had earlier. So-
yeah, so basically what we would like to propose is the 12-foot, the cedar fencing that has been
Has your attorney responded to the other?
in
attorney?
discussion. That's what
Okay.
we would like to propose, and we'd like to also see that consistent throughout the projects.
Okay.
I will point out that I don't know if, I think there is a limit on the number of feet a fence can be. It used to be 8 feet, they're called spike fences. They used to be 8 feet, and I think 10 feet is now,
6 feet.
Yeah.
6 feet's a spite, anything above 6 is a spite fence.
yeah, but you can get a building permit for, I don't know if it's up to 8 or 10 feet, but the building commissioner, you can, anything, I think they raised the spike fence height.
Well, obviously, we're not going to break the law and give them.
No, we're not.
something
We'll
that's going
confer with the
to,
building
We'll
commissioner.
confirm whatever the maximum height is, and we'll
Yeah.
confirm that you both agree that that's what you want to have.
We would
So-
appreciate that consideration, because that would solve a lot of problems.
All right, thank you. And if there's no other discussion, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the,
So moved.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ann, would you,
Yeah, I just wanted,
I don't know that we can ask you to write an approval based on what we're going to wait for Mr. Adamopoulos to get back to us with what they agree on, so that we're all
I
in
can
agreement?
craft something in a very
General
loose
manner?
manner, and then you can decide when it's in front of you, how you want to proceed.
Okay.
Want to add anything or anything?
I think that's fair, and we can still have additional discussion based on that, but I don't think we have to end our discussion tonight. I think that we'll leave it open and let the attorneys kind of slash it back and forth to make sure that whatever our final approval would be, or non-approval would be in matching with what they agree, so that.
Okay, I can put something
I'd hate to do
together.
it twice. I don't want, I just, right? I mean, I'm not, does everybody agree with that?
So, Ian, you have to figure out how tall the fence can be, because it can only be
Well-
10 feet.
No, we're not even, we'll wait until, let them go
Oh, make
through
sure
it.
they
We'll-
decide.
Yeah,
Okay.
any of those heights, we'll make sure that we match. and-
What we'll do is I'll check with the building commissioner, and the maximum height
Right.
allowed by law will be what's included
And
in
we'll
there.
let the attorneys know what that height is, and they can work on that from there. Okay?
And there are a number of other conditions that were discussed during the course of the meeting. We will need Mr. LaFramboise and Ms. Cody to both watch past videos, because each one of you missed a different meeting, in order for us to make sure that you have necessary quorum to vote on it. You need 3 out of 5, but some people have been missing. Mike missed one, so I'll put that together and figure out who's got to watch what video, and
Okay.
I'll send you the necessary forms. But there were other conditions that were going to be based on things that are on the plan, signage, restrictions on hours of operation, those kinds of things.
Right. So I would need a motion to instruct Ann to draft that for hopefully the next meeting, if they can get it all done by then.
Okay?
So you made a motion? Mike made the motion?
Okay.
I'll second.
In a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So hopefully you guys can work it out, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Thank you. Odor mitigation, you want to show us some pictures, Ann?
Pictures for, which one are we looking at?
The odor mitigation at 30
Oh, yes.
Worcester Road?
We did receive an update. There are a lot of them. So we got to go to page 2, the most current one. I keep all of these up here in part because I know the state looks at these as well, so I don't get rid of any of these. All right, the most recent one. Here's the update. I don't know if you all read it or saw it, but here's their update. The property owners were asked to supply a photograph of the units that they're using to measure odor, other than your own nose.
Right.
I will tell you that just recently, this week, actually, this week being today, I talked to the contractor who has been hired to replace the roof over there. Our permitting procedure requires that any changes to a commercial structure has to potentially require planning board review. So I talked to him. Roof replacement won't do that. They will have to have a conversation with Conservation Commission about their staging area, because there are wetlands all around that site. So as far from a planning perspective, nothing on the building permit required further action from either the planning board or the ZBA. So I approved it, and now it's off to conservation. So these are their updates thus far. This is
Okay.
the picture of the unit.
Mr. Aramopoulos, you have anything to add to this one?
If you just look above it, I believe that they brought in 10 units. It did specify the location of the 10 units. As we discussed last time, those will be shipped off. Once the roof's done, they'll bring new units back, place them in the same thing, and then we can compare the results. And then going back to Mr. Peter, it said previously, it's ultimately to try to find what the measuring point is, that if there's an industry standard of how far that odor should go out and what would be appropriate for certain distances, so that we can then compare what's there now compared to that. But I did go back to them so we could at least get your locations, as I know that was brought up, and the unit. I believe they're gonna leave it up there until the
Did we
work
get some
starts.
baseline measurements that you forwarded as part of this, or not yet?
So they just got those last week.
Oh, okay.
So they're putting them up now until the work starts, and they're gonna send them out during the construction period
Okay.
to get that baseline.
All right.
And then once the roof's done, we'll put them back out so we can compare the two results.
And I think Jason had asked you to research to see if there was anything.
That's what we're trying to get, is what the industry standard would be for
Yeah.
odor from certain
You didn't
distances.
get anything on that
I haven't
yet?
looked at it yet, but now that we have the company, I'm gonna see if they have any internal, parts that they utilize, because they do this for numerous cultivation sites across the country.
Okay.
So they may have internal data, but I'm also trying to see if there's anything from out west or in the Midwest that would have those distances and right now I don't know what the limits are, that we're seeing. The good thing with this too is that it does do it by day, so we can also see if, what they're
Where
doing
they
inside
spike,
compared to
yeah.
it.
Answered all my questions for me. I don't have to say anything.
So, we should get some information at the next meeting, hopefully, or?
Yes, I believe, we'll have,
We'd
hopefully the base-
really be interested in seeing the baseline stuff so that we have a handle on it, and I'm sure Ann would be thrilled to get it up on the website so DEP can see it as well, so.
Yes.
Of course, and I believe that when they're supposed to come back with me in July, we'll hopefully have both sets to compare, but I can try to get you the baseline.
All right, awesome.
Thank you.
Engineering updates, that's it. Chuck,
I'll check.
you got nothing, right?
I don't really have anything new that I can think of. You guys have
Okay.
any questions about?
No. I see Old Worcester Road, Gevich property, they put up a building, is that within compliance?
Yes.
So they put their foundation in,
Building's up.
Building's up.
oh, the building is up? Okay. So,
Yeah, Ted did give them, the building official, sorry, did give them a permit because they met all the requirements. Doesn't mean that they're off the hook as far as the inspections of the drainage and stuff that's required from this board, which, as far as I know, they didn't do any inspections, and our requirements for that as-built as it comes forward is gonna be as stringent as I've ever seen them, because it doesn't make any sense that they got there.
Well, I can do what we've just done with 56 Worcester Road. I can put it on the agenda for the next meeting for you to have a discussion, because you should have the property owner present when you discuss any of his projects, so I can notify him that it's on the next agenda, and you can have a full-blown conversation on how you want to proceed, because missing inspections, that's really not good.
Well, it doesn't make any sense to me that you're in the business of excavating and you excavate and you don't get inspections. I mean, he doesn't do that anywhere else. Why would he do it on his own property? It's just ignorance.
Yeah.
So I can't state it any more blunt than, well, I could, but I'm not going
Put
to.
it on- I'll put it-
Not
I'll put it
nice.
on the agenda, and it can, similar to the,
Yeah,
under these discussion items, and I'll notify Mr. Dargevich.
great. Any other questions or anything? No? Then we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Paul.
Microphones off, please. No, the height of the fence, I think, is more of a safety issue. Once it gets too high, you start getting lots of wind and.
I thought it was after 7 feet, because I'm studying my GCL.
Really? I've never heard 7, I'm hearing 6 or 8. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
So I'm actually on vacation.
For God's sake,
Shall we leave that?
Hey, your engineer's been on vacation.
no kidding.
We're adjourned, you guys know? Don't be here for me. I'm saying hello now. 3 degrees. Did you put in rain? So we'll stay on as continuing items on the CA that they that could take issues for 3 to 4 months if you don't really get their application in. This may not go until fall. This may not go until fall. And you'll be notified about the special permit process. So it's usually a letter of fall.
Yeah, are you talking stormwater or? Yeah, I thought you were talking stormwater.
So, all right, good. So I just get confused as, I get